Hello everybody, and welcome back to another ship review. And today I'm going to be talking to you all about the Yugumo, or Yugumo. Japanese pronunciations, I'm still terrible at them. Anyways, okay, so Tier 9 Japanese destroyer. And a ship that I've really loved over the last little bit of time I've played her. I mean, this ship I've fallen in love with because for me she is not an easy ship to play, and she has a rather peculiar style of play, shall we say. And I really do enjoy that style. It's just something challenging, something difficult, and frankly, these days, maybe that's just what I want. Just a challenge when I play. Instead of just playing easy mode ships all the time, right? So anyways, Yugumo. Alright, so let's talk about the Yugumo a little bit from the port view. What I'm going to do is mostly just talk about sort of key things to keep in mind, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is the guns. Japanese destroyers, people have a tendency of avoiding their guns. It's almost like, yes, I'm a torpedo boat, that's all I'm going to do. Well, with the Yugumo, you've got workable guns. You know, you've actually got workable guns. You got 6 of them in total, and 4 of them are mounted in the back here, in these 2 dual turrets. You do good damage out of them. Shell velocity is good, and these guns do pack a punch. Have to remember that with this particular destroyer, you have to use the guns, right? Something that people forget. So what I mean is, for example, if you are in trouble, let's say there's a US destroyer like the Benson that has spotted you, but you spotted him first, remember, you do have that slight concealment edge. Drop the first salvo on that Benson, right? Again, assuming that, you know, you're in a situation where the Benson doesn't exactly have all that much support. If you get into a situation where you're alone and they have all the support, you're really screwed anyways. So, assuming that, let's say, more of a one-on-one. Well, let's say you get the first surprise drop on that Benson. Immediately, the sort of feel for the Benson, like psychologically, is going to be, oh, I'm under attack, and forcing them on the defensive. So, you know, you can get a good amount of surprise there. And with the Yugumo, you get 2 good shots. That's a lot of HP that you can take off with 2 good salvos. And then, of course, you know, if after that, and you want to, let's say, run away, you can present a very narrow stern view while still popping off a good number of shells, because again, you have 4 guns in the back. So first thing, you got to remember with Yugumo, make sure you do use your guns, but again, guns, you have to remember also, use selectively, right? Don't just continuously shoot off your guns like your USN destroyer. Be a little bit more selective, pick your moments to use your guns for maximum effect. Second thing about the Yugumo is torpedoes. Yugumo has 2 sets of torpedoes. She's got the F3 set, and she's got the Type 93 Mod 2s. 2 different sets of torpedoes, and one could say 2 completely different styles of play, almost. So with the Type 93 Mod 2s, it's a little bit more safe, a little bit more distance, a little bit more for zoning areas off, and you're trying to stay safe. Now, Tier 9, staying safe is not necessarily a bad thing, because think about all the ships, for example, that have radar, right? And you get in side of 10 kilometers, there's some serious risk there, right? So if you want to play a little bit more safe, and maybe even a little bit more gunboat, right? You might want to go Type 93 Mod 2s, and then stay outside of that 10 kilometer range and, pepper things with your guns. You do have 11.1 kilometers on your guns with no AFT. So that is one style of play. Now, me personally, I've opted for the F3 playstyle, right? I like to get more up close, a little bit more surgical, target individual ships. But you also notice that I've ditched smoke. I've actually traded in smoke for torpedo reload booster. Don't do this if, you're not into that particular style of play. It's just something that I've really enjoyed lately. Just getting in there, dumping off my first set, popping the reload booster within 30 seconds, getting off a second set. And what I often find is that second set catches people by surprise. Like, ships are not ready for that second set. They see it one set and they go, oh, there's a destroyer here, and they're not really expecting anything for the next maybe minute or so, and then all of a sudden there's a second set of torpedoes coming out. So that's a playstyle that has really served me well, right? I've done very well with the ship, and just an enjoyable playstyle, right? Target a certain area, target the right ship, get in there, pop torpedoes, reload boost, another set of torpedoes. A lot of times those ships are just not ready for that. So that's 2 kind of play styles. Really up to you what you prefer. Again, if you want more traditional Japanese torpedo boat, stick with Type 93 Mod 2s. If you want something more adventurous, F3's torpedo reload booster, give that a shot. Could be a lot of fun. Alright. AA is nothing spectacular. One thing I do want to keep sort of point out for you is the max speed, right? You'll notice that with the flag, max speed is 37.3. Flag, the speed flag for Yugumo, essential, right? A lot of times you're running into even some cruisers at tier 9 that are pretty darn fast, those Japanese ones in particular. And not having that speed flag, you're just not really fast enough sometimes to outrun them with, just engine boost and speed flag. So recommend you pack a speed flag. Very, very important. Rudder shift is pretty fast, 2.9 seconds. I mean, that does give you the ability to maneuver a little bit, but do keep in mind your guns. Your guns do traverse very, very slowly. So, more about positioning, proper positioning of your guns as well, aiming them in the right direction ahead of time, than trying to, panic and do these things. Yugumo's big thing is concealment. 5.5 concealment is really, really good. You have an edge on every other ship. Benson is pretty close to you at 5.8, so you have a 0.3 advantage on the Benson. And what that means, again, like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the guns, is you do have to be ready, right? So before you get into area, think about where's the most likely direction that an enemy destroyer might be coming from. Make sure you have your guns in that direction. You can choose to disengage, let's say, but still you might want to get off 1 or 2 shots just to surprise the enemy destroyer and just to make them not want to come for you as much. Again, landing a couple thousand damage salvos on a destroyer has a tendency of sometimes making them disengage themselves as well from a fight. So, don't be afraid to use your guns. All right, in terms of modules themselves, the upgrade modules, I would recommend that, well, the big thing is to get the Torpedo Tubes Mod 3. Again, dropping that reload down as much as you can on your torpedoes. Most of your damage is still focused on those torpedoes, again, although guns are still viable. So, do take something like Aiming Systems Mod 1, just so that your guns have slightly better dispersion. But torpedo is still your main weapon, so get this particular mod. Aside from that, concealment module is very important. Rudder shift, not so much, but doesn't hurt. I mean, you could still opt to get propulsion mod too. That's fine. And then in terms of captain skills, here's what I would recommend. First 10 points, right? Get preventative maintenance, get last chance, get basic firing training, get concealment expert. Basic firing training drops your guns reload down to like 5.1 seconds, which is pretty good for Japanese destroyer. Once you've done that, however, next things you want to opt for are things like torpedo armament expertise. Get that reload down more on those torpedo tubes. Also, you want to get Adrenaline Rush. Now, Adrenaline Rush is a very, very good skill. And the reason why is, let's say you are involved in a destroyer-on-destroyer fight, and the enemy destroyer, let's say a Benson, is knocking your HP down. Well, you're doing the same in return, right? As your HP goes down, your guns reload faster and faster and faster and faster. Just in some cases, that can give you an edge, right? Your shells do great damage, you land a few of those extra hits, and you could take down even gunboats with your guns. And of course, survivability expert. If you can get the skill, that boost in HP is very, very helpful. If you have 18,000 HP, makes you a little bit more of a challenge for gunboats to fully gun you down. Also buys you that few extra little bit of time to choose whether you want to finish engagement or do something else, right? So anyways, that's pretty much the captain build that I've gone with. Now let's take her into battle and I'll show you how she performs. Alright, so here we go. Yugumo with the F3s and Torpedo Reload Booster. Although this is my second choice replay, my first choice one somehow bugged out and, just can't use it, even though that one had a much better use of the Torpedo Reload Booster. In this one, it's just F3s and just guns on the Yugumo doing all the work. Alright, so let's get going anyways. First things first, if you're playing the Yugumo, and this is something that a lot of IJN destroyer captains are kind of averse to doing, is in certain situations where you're not going to get massively focused down, take shots, help your team out, Your guns can do some damage. So in this particular case, that 3 hits that I put into that destroyer, 1800 damage, which is still something. I mean, that amount of damage hurts a destroyer. It's like 10% of its HP, so why the heck not, right? So help out your team with your guns. But not all the time, again. Always remember that. You're not always going to be, throwing out shells with your guns, because if you get spotted, you are going to get shot at, right? So not all the time, be selective. Okay, so Minotaurs rushing in. pop off some torpedoes, but of course that Minotaur is going to be smart and not rush all the way, so he eventually is going to stop and I'm going to miss. So while that is happening, let me talk about something else about the torpedoes, which I forgot to do a little bit earlier on. The F3 torpedoes are a better, I think, defensive set. So what I mean by that is, let's say the enemy team is pushing a flank and you're having to hold that flank. The F3s, I think, make for better defensive torpedoes. I mean, yes, you can use them offensively and everything, but there's usually a little bit more risk. What I mean by this is that the torpedoes only have, let's say, 8-kilometer range, but let's say the enemy team is pushing hard against one of your flanks. In a situation like that, if you are the one sort of running away and there's an enemy team that's pushing in, your 8-kilometer torpedoes, well, you can launch them while the enemy ship is still like 9.2 kilometers away. If that enemy ship is closing in, they'll run into those torpedoes of yours. So a little bit better to be used defensively. If you're chasing an enemy ship, you really have to chase until you're very, very close to being spotted. A lot more high risk, and, well, the chances of you hitting a ship that's running away from you is not as high, right? Anyway, somebody on my team, I believe it was the Bismarck, took care of the Minotaur, so that cruiser that was sort of close up and a bit of that threat taken care of. So now it's just battleships and that one Baltimore, but that Baltimore seems to be playing super, super passively, so take a little bit of a risk, come out, and trying to get torpedoes on that North Carolina. Now, one other thing, by the way, when you're playing something like the Yugumo, patience is very, very important. Be patient. Let the enemy show you what they're going to do, and then fire torpedoes accordingly. So when I first came out, the North Carolina was going one way. I sort of held back on the torpedoes a little bit, and then I watched the North Carolina start to go the other direction, then I laid some torpedoes in that North Carolina's path. And that North Carolina is basically going to present a full broadside to some of my torpedoes, and with the North Carolina's not too great TDS, there is 3 torpedo hits and dead North Carolina. But my job in this area isn't exactly complete. There is still another North Carolina, there's a Kurfürst still in that area that's still going to be able to push. Again, like I said, I prefer playing the Yugumo as a destroyer that's going to be defending an area that the enemy has to push towards. If I was at the other side right now, where let's say the E-cap is and everything's running away from me, I'm not going to have all that much fun, right? So a lot of times with the Yugumo, you want to look at the map a little bit and be like, okay, where do I think the enemy might be pushing from? Where do I want to go at the beginning of the battle? So on and so forth. With my torpedoes almost reloaded and the North Carolina now pushing towards my team, go back over there, try to get off another salvo of torpedoes, keeping in mind where the Baltimore is, and minimizing my contact with that particular cruiser. Again, Baltimore's got that radar, and if I'm in like 9.5 kilometers and he pops his radar off, I'm going to get spotted, and that's not exactly a lot of fun. Alright, so again, another salvo of torpedoes towards pushing North Carolina. A few well-timed salvos of F3s really does put a dent in the enemy's plans to try to push or anything like that. So get another 2 hits over here onto that North Carolina. That hurts. I mean, for North Carolina to eat torpedoes to the side, I mean, that hurts. Alright, so once again, remember what I said earlier about the Yugumo's guns. You have viable guns, so in a situation that presents itself, in this case, there is smoke in this area, so I know that I'm not going to get spotted by shooting off my guns. Fire. Help your team out. Don't just say, okay, I'm just going to wait some more. No, use those guns, shoot at stuff, try to get damage, in this case, try to get fires, and, support your team when you can. I guess the really big question that you have to keep in mind when you're playing the Yugumo is, should I sacrifice my stealth for, supporting gunfire, or should I maintain my stealth because I'm going to pull off a torpedo attack in the next X amount of seconds, right? These are things that you really have to consider. Okay, so I'm in the smoke, and enemy Kurfürst pushes in. There goes the sonar. So as soon as that happens, I need to try to get behind hard cover. The smoke no longer is going to cut it. Enemy Kagero's here as well, and as you can tell, I'm going to eat a bit of damage here. Ouch, that's actually not fun. But again, fire my guns at the Kagero, most likely to do some damage there. And then off goes the torpedoes against the Kurfürst. Immediately return my attention back onto the Kagero. And you can tell that each salvo that I put off, if I get a couple of hits, I mean, the damage is quite good. It's like I'm doing a pretty good amount of damage there. Put 3 hits into that Kurfürst, and of course the Kurfürst is now flooding as well. So I'm going to rack up some more damage here. Right now, 120 plus thousand. After that last salvo of torpedoes, immediately use torpedo reload booster. I want to get my torpedoes up as quickly as possible. Hey, who knows, if the Kurfürst comes around, maybe he's got a repair kit or something, maybe he's still alive, comes out. I want to be able to finish him off with another salvo of torpedoes. Luckily, of course, that Kurfürst flooded for quite a bit, and he doesn't really have a lot of HP back, so he's actually just around this corner here, so I'll deal with him when I get there. Take another pot shot at the enemy Kagero over there, and as you can see, there's the Kurfürst. He's down to like 2,000 HP, so I immediately turn my attention onto that Kurfürst, bring my guns to bear, shoot into the superstructure. You know, obviously with high explosive, that's what you want to do, and there we go, netting myself the kill. Enemy Baltimore pops up 4.7 kilometers. I took a look at the predictor line, fired a little bit short of that predictor line, thinking that the Baltimore would maybe turn, try to get bow in, maybe minimize his profile. Absolutely not. The Baltimore just sailed in a nice straight line. So no torpedoes hit, but was able to use my guns and fire AP into that broadside. Was able to take a little bit of damage there from the Baltimore, rack up a bit more damage. There we go, 152k damage, and that's pretty much the end of the battle. Anyways, like I mentioned earlier, the torpedo reload booster didn't really play that big of a role in this particular battle. Yeah, it was nice that I had my torpedoes reloaded, you know, before I had to use them. But, you know, had I just waited the extra little bit, I think I would have had my torpedoes ready as well. But I am going to show you a different battle where the torpedo reload booster did play a role. And it does, in a lot of my battles, it does actually play a bit of a role. And sometimes it is a little bit less noticeable. In this particular case, a lot more noticeable. So take a look at the situation here. I've got a friendly Missouri in my division who is basically bow tanking Missouri that's trying to push him, as well as Bismarck a little bit behind him, and another Missouri coming behind them as well. There's also a Shira there, so not exactly the best situation for my division mate. So what I do is I come out from the side here. See, this Missouri is about 5.2 kilometers away. I'm going to come out and I'm going to get off my first set of torpedoes. Now, there is another set of torpedoes heading there already. There goes my set, and that Missouri, in this particular kind of situation, is already in a bit of trouble, right? This is not the best position to find yourself in, getting essentially cross-dropped by 2 sets of torpedoes. I'm thinking here, going to get some good damage, get a flooding, Missouri should go down. Yeah, I got the 2 hits. Got the damage, no flooding. Just one of those RNG moments. So got those torpedoes cycled again using that torpedo reload booster, turning full broadside so that any shots fired by the Missouri is going to be overpens and not penetration damage. Get my torpedoes on target, fire off another set. Now this set, the Missouri doesn't expect, right? I'm not supposed to have torpedoes right now. And this is the thing I tend to catch people with when I do use the torpedo reload booster with the F3s, is they're thinking that I've used my torpedoes, there's nothing to worry about, and then suddenly 30 seconds later another set appears out of nowhere. Put a few more holes into that Missouri and turn them into a submarine. And that pretty much is it for my review of the Yugumo. She is a Japanese destroyer that has some workable guns and has a rather unique playstyle if you happen to choose to go with the F3s and the torpedo reload booster, but she can still play a very conservative, traditional Japanese torpedo boat with the Type 93 Mod 2s and your typical destroyer smoke. Anyways, folks, that wraps it up for this ship review episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care, have yourselves a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.